see you again. Michael, come on.
Mike. I haven't seen Mike in a while. Right.
Well, thank you again.
God bless.
Okay, next office, we have State Representative 24th District. And first we're going to have Honorable Lisa Hernandez speak. And Lisa has been our representative for some time. She first originally represented just a small portion of central eastern Berwyn, and then in the redistricting she was moved over to a larger portion south of that area, which includes my district. So she's been my representative for a while, Lisa Hernandez.
Hi. So good evening, and I first want to start by thanking the ABC committee for putting this together. It does give a chance for the community to get to know their candidates at whatever level. I mean, I think it's a really smart thing to do to try to get people engaged in the process. So I am your state representative, the 24th district, which is now, after the remapping, a district that goes into Chicago and as far as Chicago, with Berwyn being a very significant part of it. I've been in office for about approximately 10 years. It's 5 terms. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background so there's an understanding of how long it took me to get here and what's the sense of all of this, why I'm in office. I'm a 32-year resident of Cicero. I am a mother of 3, and I'm a grandmother of 2, a 2-year-old and a 7-month, 2 little girls. I've been an active mom in the district, in the community. That led me to become a board member for the Children's Center of Cicero and Berwyn since 85. And I'm currently still a board member, so it's very close to me when it comes to matters of early childhood. I think it's important to know that I am one of the co-founders of the Cicero Youth Commission. And with that activism in the community, working at the school district, I worked at the administration building in Cicero Public Schools, District 99. I was there for 17 years. And I really took a first-hand look at when the district was going through a dramatic change. This was back in around 85, and there was an influx of Latino families coming into the area. I was one of 2 Latina Spanish-speaking in the district, so you could just imagine the need at that time for my services. I really got to see firsthand the challenges that district went through: overcrowding, bilingual instruction, no before after school programs. Gang violence was really coming up at a significant pace. So many issues at that time, and this is where it started for me. Working at the district, talking to parents, really coming to know many of the issues. So the opportunity came, but I ran for local office. I did try. At that time, the local administration was in a very controversial time, and I wanted to see change. I didn't like what was going on. I saw people being exploited. I saw, it was a matter of stepping up. All right, my involvement in community, it just pushed me to go in that direction. So I threw my hat in for a local election. I didn't make it. However, a district opened up. The 24th district opened up. It was a new seat that opened in 2000 after that census. It was hard fought. Many of you might know of an organization called MALDA, who is very responsible for this district opening up, and basically for the representation of Latinos, since it was a very different in terms of demographics, a very changing community. So working at the school district, I saw an opportunity here that we can have some representation, especially when it had to do with education, bringing funding and bringing, 1 minute, I can wrap it up. So long story short, that was the beginning. I ended up running for state rep, and at that time, somebody was pretty much watching what I was doing. I was viewed as a reformist at the time. I didn't make it into office the first time, but I did make it into, I would say in essence, I did arrive in Springfield, but it was through the Lieutenant Governor's office. At that time, it was Pat Quinn. He was watching what I was doing, and so he told me to join his staff, so I did. Second time around came the opportunity because he asked me, I hope you're not going to stop. With his support, I did it again, and I didn't make it into office. It took the third time until I finally took that seat. And I tell you this story because it is that same vigor, it's that same perseverance and commitment and determination that I have for my community to assure that we have a voice. And I can talk a lot about the accomplishments, but one area that I will remain committed, and it's my priority, is education. My first bill was the expansion of child care. And from that point on, there has been growth of Illinois coming first in the country when it came to early childhood. They were the first to step it up. And from that point on, I have committed myself with it. An early child school building in Cicero for that hard fight. And I can go on. I'm out of time, but I'm open to questions. I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, I have 2 questions. State budget is the biggest problem facing the state of Illinois. What do you propose to do to get it under control?
Well, as we all know, that was the significant problem this year. It is a matter of really coming together and working together. I am committed to continue working with the other side of the aisle to come to some terms. There is no way around it, but we have to talk about new revenue streams. We cannot go on. We cannot go on without making some sort of measures. There has to be certain measures of new revenue. Earlier today, I forget your name. Kurt did talk about a few, and that I support. The graduated income tax is the most, I think, beneficial in trying to raise those funds, those revenues. He talked about the LaSalle tax. It's a fee on the trade tax, which is, it's something to look at. There's many options, closing corporate loopholes to continue to try to put a stop to a rising deficit. But there is no doubt that let me tell you, and I know that all of you have heard it, that the governor has agreed that we do have to have some sort of revenue come into play. But he's holding that on his turnaround agenda, and that is the stalemate there. That is the problem there. There is no willingness really right now. Well, that's been the problem, that we are not looking to take away those services or from the middle class. We have to be very careful that we don't want to take away from the middle class and really essentially it become even worse. So it's continuing to work on that effort. It's continuing to come to an agreement of where those revenue streams, what we're going to have to look at.
Second question for you. Would you support the setting up of a separate fund for all state pensions that cannot be used to balance the budgets?
I'm open to all kinds of options right now. Our pensions, though, I have to say, we have put some measures in. We began with any new any new employees that came in, those were the changes, whether the age was extended, we did that. But we have to look at other ways to how to sustain this liability that it's 111 billion right now. I can't say no. I have to say I'm open. But I am not going to disrupt those who have constitutionally been pretty much promised that their pensions are what they are going to rely when they retire. We can't just take that away from it. So it's got to be carefully done. But I am open to discussion.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any questions from the audience? Yes.
I have a question. Most of the local pensions, police, fire, are paid through property taxes. The General Assembly has been willing in the past 30, 40, 50 years, to enhance benefits for police and fire, but they never provide the funding to cover those increases.
Your question is,
what can we do? I don't have any problems with benefits on police and fire. I have a problem with the General Assembly approving it without providing commensurate funding, because it comes back to the towns without any of their say-so, and we have to pay the increases.
So right now, it's the locals are responsible pretty
Right.
much for the pensions. There is discussion, but that's all it is. There's discussion. I have to be very honest with you that everything is going to be looked at. But I have to tell you, it's 111 billion and growing. How can we not? It is a matter of just being very, reasonable about that, but cautious in the steps that we're going to take. I do look at what my constituency tells me to do. Many of my decision making is based on the response of what my constituents are reaching out and telling me. I keep tabs on that. I have to assess sometimes when there's decision making that is too close. I have to look and see what my constituency is telling me to do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Questions? Yes.
I would like to see the elected officials make some big concerted effort to find ways to save money. I know we're billions in the hole, but in our households, all of us, if we know the money's not there, we make cuts somewhere. We don't look for somebody who's going to give us more money that we can waste.
Yeah, I have to, so that's exactly what we've been doing, at least since I've been in office, all but the first year. Because the first year that I was in office it was at the time that Governor Blagojevich was in office, and that's when he had asked us, actually made us stay the whole year in Springfield. So I was the whole year in Springfield. Since then, it's been, he left office, it's been cut every year. Cut. And to the point that when we passed a temporary income tax and it expired when Rauner went into office, that was actually taking us from a spiral of debt that we were going into, that income tax. Because we were already to the bare bone cut where people were really getting hurt. Meaning we cut Medicaid, we cut all kinds of other areas. Education was kept, it was prorated. That was hurt so bad. So we had to find ways to try to level ourselves. And so the income tax brought some, I can't even say relief, but once it expired, we were beginning to see some levels of recoup. I can't really even say recoup, but we were seeing where the graph was going. And once the income tax expired, it was a hole that just keeps going deeper and deeper since then.
I'm not talking about cutting services to people. What I'm talking about is cutting unnecessary waste, like putting extra people on staff, car privileges,
It's all gone.
perks for meals.
It's all gone. It's gone. It's bare. I mean, it's carved into the bone. That's the way I would put it. There's no cars. That's done away. People oftentimes think of us that we have it all. I mean, our pay cut has been gone. I haven't received, and I'm a full-time legislator. So there might be others that might have like a part-time job, but it's gone beyond. There's none of that. There's no planes. There's no cars. There's I can assure you that it's gone.
Rahm Emanuel just hired 2 new people.
Pardon me?
Rahm Emanuel just made 2 new positions.
That's the city of
Yeah, I
Chicago.
know that's the city of Chicago. I guess I
Two
made it
separate.
everybody know.
Yeah, two separate. So think of your local right here. What happens here? There is dollars that come through. I mean, the local because of the taxpayer, the property tax. I mean, there is levels of funding that they're not dependent on us, but dependent on their. So it's totally separate. So I hope I answered you. I'm not sure if I did.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Yes.
So what is your opinion on the way we fund schools now? I know there's been a push for revamping it and making it a little more fair. Where do you stand on that?
So I'm happy to tell you we are headed in that direction on restructuring on how our formula is currently, because there is no doubt, I totally agree with what you had to say, is that there is such an there's no equity here when it comes to dollars being spread out. And so we have been sitting on a task force, and I think we're very close. We're very close as to how the funding is going to be disseminated. It's going to be more in an equalized way, and that has been from the day one since I've been in office that there's been some discussion, but there's mobilization now. The stopgap budget that did take place until December has some of it incorporated. We did manage to agree that we were going to pay or fully fund this time around, fully fund this year schools. So if many of you may have heard that District 100 was very concerned about a couple of schools that were going to be closing. Yeah. I heard about this, and due to this stop budget, it's a temporary 6 months, but it allows for the schools to be paid not what they were, but at a full rate. What we were being paid before was what they call a proration, a part of it, not the full funding. This time around is the first time they're going to be fully funded. Okay.
Anyone else? Yes, Carol.
Why can't the legislators do something about using more of that lottery money for education?
Where's that
I
going?
know there's a lot of money paid out to the winners. There's got to be a way that they can
I agree
work
with you, and that's I'm one of those who is in that discussion that we have to do a better job. I'm one of the ones who have been complaining at the table.
Instead of raising real estate taxes all the time, use that lottery money.
Absolutely.
Some of it. You know, the
It has to be
Constitution-
much more, people need to know a little bit more how that is being disseminated as well. There's confusion on that as
Well,
well.
the Constitution says that we should get 50% for our schools. Illinois is, about 45 or something like that?
It's
40%.
at the bottom.
Yeah, nowadays it's probably lower than that.
Yeah, it's at the bottom.
And
Great
if
to
the state
pay.
can't live up to the Constitution, what the heck would it do anybody?
But I want to really assure you that we're there. We're just about there in terms of the formula changing. There
I
is-
know you're there, my dear. I expect some action.
The action, you got it.
I do.
Anyone else? Okay, I heard, yes, question.
Is there any discussion about maybe having gambling in the airports, like O'Hare, to help pay our bills?
Gambling. I've been a proponent of some of the gambling, but, for the purposes of revenue. But I'm not,
I just need.
I haven't heard of that discussion going, extending into the airports. There has been some casino discussions of areas, but I don't know.
I just need to get the right.
I'm cautious about those discussions. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Just given the desperate straits we're in and given the amount of wealth piling up in the corporations and financial sector here, I just see this LaSalle Street tax on financial transactions as a no-brainer. What would it take to get you on board to co-sponsor that and fight for it?
We need at least 60 on the Democratic side.
Will you
If we're
co-sponsor?
not, if I would sponsor. That would be something that I would be supporting. But it doesn't mean, so here it becomes a problem that I can be very supportive. It's trying to get other members to be supportive of that as well, so in order for it to pass. What happens is if there's enough members that are speaking to leadership, that's when we need it. It's having that. Sometimes it's not enough of us.
Two things. Today I heard something or read something on the internet that previously Chicago Public Schools had a separate tax for their pensions. And then that money was taken away from the state and given to the city. And the city was able to use those funds whichever way they wanted, and therefore there was a big deficit that is now with the teacher's pension. I heard that a bill was passed and signed by the governor that allows the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund to again institute the tax, and that money will go directly to the fund and not to the cities, which should help to balance
Yes,
the budget.
and that was asked of us too, if we could pass that bill. Yes, so that was done, they started, I forget, I think in the 1980s when that was, they took it away, and now it's being established.
And the other one was that there was pension reform for the state unions or state pensions, also passed by the state legislature, but Governor Rauner is holding back because he wants certain conditions met before he'll sign it.
Yes, and many of you have heard about that turnaround agenda. That's been very much why there has not been an agreement, because the disagreement is here that we're not going to go along with the turnaround agenda where it's going to hurt the middle class. We can't just, that is, I hope you can regard that is your representation for your representation down in Springfield, that you are not getting shortchanged.
I just wanted to make a comment that Lisa and I were both elected in 2005, and we went to Washington to attend seminars to become a good representative of the people. I'm glad to see that she's still working away at it. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Andy Kirchhoff. The people of Illinois, and especially the residents of 24th District, deserve something better for their state government. Together, we can build a financial, suitable, sustainable future, restore transparency and ethics in Illinois, guarantee an effective social safety net. Andy Kirchhoff.
Thank you. I'll echo Lisa's comments about the All Berwyn Committee. I'm really happy to be here tonight. I'm really happy to get a chance to talk to voters like you guys here, whether you're from Brookfield, Berwyn, Cicero, Riverside, anywhere in the 24th District. I'm really, really happy to be here, and I'm honored to be here to be able to talk with you guys. So, as Jim just said, my name's Andy Kirchhoff. I'm 27 years old. I'm a lifelong Berwyn resident. I live on 35th and Winona. I graduated from St. Leonard Grade School, class of 2003. I went to Quigley High School Seminary, graduated class of 2007, the last graduating class before that school closed, actually. In 2011, I graduated from Loyola University Chicago with a bachelor's in philosophy. Most of that time while I was in college, actually, at Loyola, I was studying to be a Roman Catholic priest. Needless to say, God had other plans, or I wouldn't be here in front of you today. But I learned a lot during those years, and I learned a lot growing up in this community. I'm running for state representative because I want to give back to the community that formed me into the man that I am today. And because I know, as Jim was just mentioning, we deserve something better from our state government than what we're currently getting. That's simply a matter of fact. We have an unresolved budget crisis. As my opponent just mentioned, we have a 6-month stopgap budget. That's frankly, it is only 6 months, and because of that, District 100 and other school districts in the state, I know this because I've been attending their board meetings, they're still going to be facing that crisis. It's just 6 months delayed now. And of course, as you know, that's not going to be enough to finish off the school year. We also have 111, that's actually an old estimate, it's now $115 billion in pension liabilities. And that's the real reason why we have the budget crisis in the first place. It's really important for people to know this. That $115 billion, we're talking 5-6 annual budgets right there. And because we have not found a good resolution to this, it's going to keep on hanging over our heads like as if we're trying to lift a barbell. And what happens when you try to lift a barbell and you aren't weight training? Well, you're going to get crushed. And that's what's going to happen to this state if we're not careful. We're also a state that, needless to say, we send governors to prison, regardless of what political party they come from. And, well, that's not acceptable. The voices of the voters aren't heard, as a recent Supreme Court decision made clear for the independent map amendment. So, friends, as someone who grew up here and still lives here and wants to live here as long as he can, I know that we all deserve something better. I want to see our communities thrive. That's why I'm running. I believe I'm actually capable of providing the thoughtful, independent leadership that's needed for this district. Now, my opponent's had her say, and I respect her service, but she's had 10 years to make a difference. And frankly, the results are not pretty. She was one of the few members of the State Assembly, part of a super minority actually, that voted against a property tax freeze, even when there were local exceptions made for referenda. Yes, it is.
Yeah,
and I've got the documentation to prove it.
Well, you probably don't know how to read them bills.
Oh, excuse me. I wonder, well, Mrs. Hernandez, if I may finish, we can get to that in a second. Whether you look at votes like the property tax bill, you can look at other bills like the income tax, which failed to get the revenue that we need. There's absolutely no doubt about it. We need independent, thoughtful leadership. And unlike my opponent, who proudly fundraises with Mike Madigan, I'm capable of both dissenting from the Rauner agenda and from Mike Madigan. If I'm elected, I'll be the first openly gay Republican in the state legislature. I support immigration reform proudly and strongly. I support a carbon tax as the preferred revenue source. I understand what you were saying earlier, Mr. Curtin, about the tax on trading revenue, essentially. And that's something I'd be open to doing too. But I believe the carbon tax is the best way forward. It's eco-friendly, and frankly, it's the least regressive means of getting our tax dollars back in order and making sure that we actually have a sustainable future, as opposed to an income tax, which is frankly too top-heavy, as New Jersey shows. So for these reasons and more, I want to be your state representative. I want to make you guys proud that you live in this district. I'd be honored to have your vote, and I'd be honored to have your support.
Two questions I have for you. Are you in favor of term limits? And if so, how many terms do you propose for state offices?
Sure. So this is a question that comes up a lot.
Yes.
I hear it door to door. I hear it in the meetings. I'm actually a term limit skeptic. I don't think that it's actually the solution to solving our corruption problem in the state. Would I be okay with it? Sure. I think the best solution for that is to have the voters vote on it. I have a suspicion that voters would approve it without question. And if they do, I'm fine with it. I don't plan on spending my whole life in Springfield. But in terms of actually fighting corruption, making sure that we have basically a government that we can trust again, the best way forward is reform efforts like the independent map amendment, efforts such as consolidating government so there's less government positions that are frankly both duplicative and actually make it harder for people to find the social services they need. Those are more solid reform efforts. I'll refuse to take a pension if I'm elected to. I'm not afraid to say that. I'll support a pay freeze. I'll support a decrease in pay. The state legislature is supposed to be a part-time position. It pays better than a lot of full-time gigs. I should know. I was employed full-time. I went part-time because I wanted to run for state legislature. And, well, we make $68,000 a year. That's a lot of money. That's more than the average income of this district. And, again, I think those are the kind of reforms we can make. So, term limits, sure, I'm okay with it. I don't think that's what we should be focusing on.
Okay. Second question. Do you believe the state should fully fund all levels of public education?
Yes, without question. Having attended the District 100 board meetings with great frequency over these past couple of months, it's very clear to me that there's inequity in the system. My opponent mentioned it, and she's right. Illinois, frankly, does not invest nearly enough in education. That probably sounds unbelievable to a lot of people in this room when you see your property taxes through the roof as high as they are. But we really don't invest as much in education as we should. And part of the problem for that Part of the problem with our current system is that if you are from a poor district where there's no property tax base, you are essentially left on the hook for the state to fund every other service that you have in your school. That's not the right way to do this, people. Especially right now with the budget crisis being what it is, it's obviously these poor districts are going to be worse off. So I'm a big fan of what Senator Andy Menard, Southern Illinois Democrat, has been working on. He has done a lot of work in finding various ways to get this education formula reworked. His first go at it was frankly not sufficient. It actually hurt a lot of suburban districts, including poor suburban districts, and there were actually Democratic DuPage County representatives that said as much. You know, this is a no-go. This is basically turning the problem and flipping it on its head. It's the problem in reverse. He has since reformed his bill. There's Republicans who have been working on this too. And I'm actually, like my opponent, I'm optimistic that we're going to see some real education funding reform in this state. I would love to be a part of it. This district includes both suburban and city schools. The representative in this district is at a prime opportunity to essentially put forward ideas to the state that other districts can't.
Can I revert to what?
Okay.
And I'd like to do the same.
So, you mentioned that I had voted against tax freezes. So I need to make sure that the audience here is clear on this. So either it's going to, make him look like he's misleading people or he's just lying, but there was approximately 12 to 14 bills that dealt with freezing